House Bill 68. We've talked about that many times. This bill included a SAFE Act in part. It also dealt with women's sports, but it protected children from experimental gender procedures while installing rules to protect female athletes from confused boys and men. Now, the bill, the House handedly overrode the governor, but now it goes to the Ohio Senate, which will reconvene next week for their vote. What can we expect? Joining me now to discuss this is Ohio State Senator Kristina Roegner. She serves as chair of the Ohio Senate Oversight Committee, responsible for initially putting this bill forward in the Ohio Senate. She represents Ohio's Senate District 27. Senator, welcome to Washington Watch. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Tony. It's great to be with you.
So how are you feeling about next week's vote on the override of the governor's veto?
I'm feeling very optimistic that we will be able to override his veto, just as the House did last week. In fact, they came back with a few more votes than they had even the first time to override the veto. I believe we will do the same next week.
Have you been hearing from your constituents and others in Ohio since the governor vetoed the bill?
We have. My office has been fielding phone calls and emails, and I do ask them every couple of days how those are coming in. And it's definitely overwhelmingly in favor of the veto override.
So you helped advance this on the Senate floor. It's a measure we've talked about going all the way back to Arkansas, working with policymakers there. Why is this legislation so important for protecting children in Ohio?
Well, not just in Ohio, but across the entire world, quite frankly, but certainly our 50 United States. I mean, this is important for multiple reasons. As you mentioned at the beginning, House Bill 68 is the Protect Women's Sports Act, but it's also protecting minors from any type of experimental like transgender surgeries and cross-sex hormones, et cetera. So from the sports aspect, I mean, that's a no-brainer. You're created with more muscle mass, you have greater lung capacity, denser bones. That's the way God made you. You're stronger generally. And that's, so I think to keep girls safe and to keep a more of a level playing field, we absolutely need to protect that arena and keep it just for girls. On the SAFE Act, this is interesting because there have been some countries, such as Sweden, for example, that was a pioneer in this type of experimental procedure where minors would suffer from gender dysphoria and then they would want to transition, right? Well, you and I both know that God created them male and female and God doesn't make mistakes. But so Sweden was one of the pioneers to this, but they since have backtracked and have really pushed the brakes on any of this type of surgery because of the harm that it can do in the long run. Not to mention that minors aren't ready to make such life-altering decisions so early. So for those reasons, to protect minors, to protect girls, we believe that this is important legislation to pass here in the state of Ohio, just like many other states have already done.
Right, you're 22, almost 24 states have passed legislation like this. To me, and it sounds like to you as well, this is just common sense. But when did common sense become, number one, in short supply, but number two, so controversial?
That is a great question, and it's a sad state of our society today. This shouldn't have to be legislated. To me, this is common sense. I mean, there are clear differences between men and women. As I mentioned earlier, God created us that way, and He does not make mistakes. And He created us in His image, and it's to be celebrated. And it's really sad when you see any person, but certainly young people, trying to work against their own biology, and it doesn't end well. So happy to stand with my colleagues.
Well,
to do this.
Senator, I want to thank you for your leadership on this. So, last question for you: when do you anticipate the Senate voting next week?
I would anticipate on Wednesday, so a week from today.
Okay. Well, we'll be watching that very, very closely. Again, Senator Roegner, I want to thank you for joining us today, but also thank you for your leadership there in the state of Ohio.
My pleasure. Thanks for the interview.
Absolutely.
Take care.